Right, good afternoon everyone. So I am Owen Griffiths. I'm the Commercial Director of The Sun at News UK. I've spent my career working at publishers both on and offline, which has given me a clear view of many of the challenges and opportunities that media owners face when it comes to acting responsibly. I've been able to witness some of the successes and frankly some of the failures that publishers have made as they embrace their role and responsibilities more. But what does this really mean? I think there's a lot of talk around responsibilities in business. I don't think you could escape the word at Cannes the other week, and we've heard talk today from the panel earlier and from Laura just now on many of the issues that I'll touch on today. But what makes a responsible media owner? For context, most publishers don't have significant emissions issues. We don't have complex or controversial upstream supply chain, and most operate a reasonably noble mission. So for us at The Sun, it's to inform and entertain more people every day and to build communities through our unique and powerful content. However, from an industry point of view, there are things we need to acknowledge. We are significant employers. We've got well over 5,000 employees, which brings with it influence in the industry. We do have some products with a physical footprint and thus have a climate impact. And as we continue to expand our digital footprint, we operate in what has become a complex and sometimes murky downstream supply chain between media owner and brand. That said, we exert real power in society through our editorial outputs, whether that is mobilising the UK around vaccinations or campaigning for parents of disabled children, as we have done this week in our Give It Back campaign. We can influence governments and people's thinking, and that should not be taken lightly. And ultimately, if you ask our editorial staff, we're a mirror to society, and therefore we must be responsible for representing them accurately. A quick glance at the volume of letters and emails that we receive from readers every day tells you what they think of us. Less of a brand and more of a friend of whose community they are part of. So ask yourself how you feel when you're let down by a brand. Maybe a flight has been cancelled last minute. Then think about how much worse you feel when a friend lets you down. This is the trust relationship and emotional connection that news brands have with their readers, and we have a responsibility to keep that sacrosanct. So when it comes to being responsible, media owners in general haven't always got things right, but it's our duty, both ethical and fiscal, to manage to make things right. So while I don't have all the answers today, I do want to look at some of the key issues that we have identified that we want to tackle in our own move to be a more responsible media owner. First, the topic of diversity and inclusion, which raises internal and external questions. As a base, we believe our writers and presenters should reflect the audience they talk to, and our commercial and production teams should also be representative of society. The Sun has always tried to reflect the society in which it operates, and that society is changing fast, and we are trying to change with it. The media industry, and traditional print media in particular, has been overwhelmingly white, middle class, and at the senior level male, like yours truly. Thankfully, that is changing fast. So we've set ourselves a goal of 50-50-20, that's male, female, ethnic minority representation across the business. And some of our recent exec appointments, from Victoria Newton as Editor-in-Chief on The Sun through to Dominic Carter as EVP on The Sun, demonstrate our commitment to this. Editorially, we've also questioned our practices, which has led to many more changes. The Sun has dropped the use of the term BAME, appreciating the reductive nature of grouping diverse ethnic groups under a single acronym. And like our employment goals, we now also have the same for the images that we use across our print and digital products, with our picture desks ensuring that they are also representative of society. And in the wake of the Black Lives Matter movement and George Floyd's murder, we shifted our editorial coverage to highlight this important issue, which culminated in our Time for Change campaign, fronted by the likes of Marcus Rashford and Anthony Joshua. So we've considered our own practices, but how do you build the talent pool of the future? We've identified that we need more diverse voices at every level in the newsroom and boardrooms in order to serve the society that we reflect. But, and this was touched on in the last presentation, bringing diverse talent in isn't easy. It's even harder in today's competitive employment market. So to meet the challenge, we've partnered with Kickstart, and we're the first media brand to do so, and have created over 100 paid placements for unemployed young people. We've also launched 45 two-year-long apprenticeships and established more than a dozen partnerships with diversity recruitment specialists. The organisation has developed leadership programmes for people from diverse backgrounds and introduced diversity experts across its brands alongside employee programmes such as News is Out and our Parents programme. So as a business, we're continuing to strive to understand the dynamics of these diverse audiences. For example, we sponsored the Black Pound report from the Blacklight organisation, and this is the first research of its kind to try and assess the value and dynamics of the Black, Asian and multi-ethnic marketplace to ensure that these groups are better represented in our products. This is vital for our commercial work and the talent that we commission. In particular, when you look at the findings and realise that 70% of respondents, that's versus 49% of the general population, trust brands more if they consider different types of people in their creation of their products and services. So we really hope that this can become a resource for the wider industry as much as it is News UK. Moving on to sustainability, probably the topic of the day. Again, two dynamics are reflected here, our internal efforts and what we reflect to the world. So internally, we focused on the basics, using 100% sustainable and recycled paper and dropping all single-use plastics. By 2020, we had succeeded in removing 800 tonnes of single-use plastics from our supply chain, so replacing the poly bags that our magazine products come in with compostable alternatives. We employ constant effort to optimise our supply chain from printing to distribution, and we have a target to reduce our carbon footprint by 25% by 2025. That's following a 42% reduction since 2016. And for the first time, we too have appointed a head of sustainability for the whole organisation to champion best practices in all areas. Externally, we also aim to promote sustainability to our audiences. We know that 88% of Sun readers want to live more sustainable lives, but under pressure from inflation, which as we all know is at a 40-year high now, responsibility to us means giving readers practical advice that actually has a realistic chance of being followed. The Sun has a history of campaigning, which we've now turned to these environmental efforts. So the Sun's Green Team feature communicates sustainability in a way that's relevant to our audience, combining sustainability with money-saving tips. And to encourage greater recycling, we've started two initiatives, Mask Force and Some Bottle. So that's encouraging people to recycle single-use masks and plastic bottles. And to give ourselves a target, and in order to measure the impact of these initiatives, we've also joined forces with a new campaign called Count Us In, with the aim of bringing a billion people together to reduce carbon emissions overall by 20%. The point being that in each of these examples, we chose to tackle significant problems that could be addressed without the cost implication to our readers. So I mentioned earlier that we're also conscious of our responsibilities as we move to be a digital-first publisher. There's been a lot of talk about this already today, but the digital advertising supply chain is fundamentally flawed. Media owners and brands are not getting their fair value and consumers' data is being exploited. This very hard-to-read image shows the number of ad calls from us, a typical publisher, to the domain as the page loads. It shows just how many calls a single page view can generate. And the carbon footprint that such a simple action generates cannot be overstated. Network effects have obliged publishers and brands to be participants in this broken system, but now, I think as attitudes change, we're collectively responsible for fixing it. For us, this means a minimum of working with partners who are focusing on offsetting this, while working on our own ways we can shorten this chain by proving the efficiency of buying directly with us. It does seem as though we're on the cusp of a major change in how this media is bought and sold. So the last time we saw this level of change was in the late noughties, where the decisions were made by brands, media owners and ad tech, and that led to the situation that we're now in, with data bought and sold as a commodity and the value of media not being fairly represented. So we now have an opportunity to take the responsible decisions, to build a new market which is protected and that upholds the intention of privacy legislation such as GDPR. We can try and rebuild the market how it was, but that wouldn't be the responsible choice. So we need to create something that works better for brands, for consumers, and for the market as a whole. Data will be first-party owned, permissioned, and used at its source, not modelled in the middle without knowledge of the consumer or the originator. Brands should insist on understanding the provenance of this data, whether it's collected and used under legitimate premises. And publishers, like ourselves, should declare that openly. And we welcome initiatives such as the IAB's datalabel.org that establishes the frameworks of this accountability. So for news brand publishers, the topic of viewability has also been divisive. I think responsibility in this respect means publishers being respectful of their two customers, the reader and the advertiser. And that can mean difficult conversations with the advertisers, for example. So 100% viewability is completely easy to achieve, but it's at the absolute detriment of the reader experience and ends up positioning the brand as an immovable irritant. Responsibility for us means striking the right balance between ads and experience based on the commercial model for the site. And we believe that those sites that choose to add more advertising to make up the shortfalls now will pay dearly in the long term. And on the always emotive topic of brand safety, what brand safety means will remain open to debate. And there is a real need for us to understand the benefits and the limitations of hard news. The commitment to providing clients with choice and transparency is a bare minimum. So responsibility here works both ways. Open dialogue between buyer and seller gives advertisers access to some of the most impactful, emotionally engaging environments on the web. However, currently, this can be blocked by mediocre technology that does not comprehend nuance. We know there is more, much more, that we in the wider industry can do to improve things for advertisers and consumers, but it will take concerted action by responsible players to create a more balanced and equitable market. And finally, responsibility lies with our editorial teams. Fake news and misinformation have been a cancer in society, destroying the shared truths that drive social cohesion. News brands provide trusted, quality news, regulated by ISPO, Ofcom and the Editor's Code, with nothing going to print or being placed online that could go against this. The value of trusted editorial in brands was actually proven during COVID as we fought to give people accurate information. So it's no accident that during the pandemic, news brands were actually chosen by the government as a key communication channel with the population. In fact, this coverage and how it demystified health measures and the vaccine in particular was praised by the government, Matt Hancock, the then Health Secretary, for its role in mobilising the public. Of course, he wasn't thanking us some months later when we ran this, but our readers trust us to hold even our biggest supporters to account. And as responsible media owners, we take our role as a beacon of truth very seriously. So not everyone agrees with every opinion expressed in The Sun or any other news brand, but that's a good thing. A multiplicity of ideas is vital for an effective democracy. And across the news industry, the whole spectrum of opinions must be represented. But what's important is that the opinions expressed are based in fact and not misinformation. This trust relationship between the media owner and consumer is also vital for advertisers. Our readers trust our titles and what appears within them and around our content, so they are equally let down if editorial or advertising within them is misleading. So we go out of our way to ensure that they are both accurate and trustworthy. Responsible media owners need to understand and respect their role to advertisers as this trusted advisor, helping brands understand how best to talk to their readers in a way that works for both parties. This relationship doesn't really exist in the same way in search or social. So responsible media owners must understand the power of their advertising and, as I talked about at the start, feel the same sense of responsibility you would if you recommended a brand to a friend. In summary, none of this is easy. The challenges are many, but we do know what we need to do. So with diversity, we recognise that you can't fire your way to diversity, so you have to build over time. With sustainability, we can act sustainably, but our carbon output is relatively small, so we can promote sustainability, but we can't force the change. Looking at how we treat data, we acknowledge that the data ecosystem is vast and entrenched, and changing it will take time. And sometimes the world just isn't as brand safe as any of us in commercial roles would like it to be. Editorial content is created for readers and not for advertisers, but that does engender editorial trust, which we must maintain and better harness for advertisers. So let me go back to the original question of what a responsible media owner is. A responsible media owner is one that minimises its impact on the environment, promotes diversity inclusion, both internally and externally, works proactively to improve the advertising supply chain and experience for readers and advertisers, recognises its power and wields it responsibly. So that is the journey we're on in The Sun, and we'd love to work with brands to go on this together. Thank you.